Books have been burned, histories have been rewritten, and the truth has been buried. Think about that. We're talking about the land, guys. We are talking about the land today, and we are talking about history. Now, you guys know sometimes I like to read different articles. And today I read an article that touched my heart. And so I always jump on here to ask you guys what you think. All right. This is not putting anything on you guys. This is just asking you what you think about the article. That's all. So I'm going to read a good majority of this article because it just really struck me. And so I wanted to share it with you guys. The article is by Sarah Jinks, and it is titled, "When They Take the Land, They Take Everything." And she says, the books have been burned, histories have been rewritten, truth has been buried, and today the same forces that seized the land are now seizing education, information, and intellectual freedom. Wow. Wow. Something to think about. So I don't know if the land is important to you or not, but at the end of this video, I will give you some suggestions on how to help keep and preserve our land. And if it's not for you, share it with someone else. But she says here, there was a time when land was a shared gift, not a possession. A time when women farmed, governed, and provided for their communities, when the earth was not a commodity, but a birthright. You have it. A time when power did not come from banks, kings, or corporations, but from the land itself, held in common, sustaining all who lived upon it. But that time was stolen, is what she says. The loss of land was the loss of sovereignty itself. And we are witnessing the same story untold again today. She goes on to explain how women's economic power was stolen. She says, for centuries across Europe, land was held in common, meaning it did not belong to any one person, but was shared by the people who lived on it. Villagers farmed, hunted, and gathered food from the land. Women played a central role in these economies, growing crops, raising animals, weaving textiles, and practicing medicine. Their survival did not depend on men, it depended on their relationship with the land. But between the 15th and 19th centuries, the land was stolen through a process known as the enclosure of the common. Kings and landlords seized common lands, fenced them off, and claimed them as their private property. Women who had sustained themselves for generations were forcibly removed. That sounds familiar, even in our indigenous cultures. Widows and unmarried women, once able to survive independently, were left with few options. Many entered servitude or starved. and those who resided were labeled vagrants, criminals, or witches, and many were punished accordingly. She says this was about control. This was not about land. And they are doing it today, controlling knowledge and everything else and what we can know. She said the enclosures force people into economic dependency on landlords and wages. Those who had once sustained themselves freely were now required to pay for access to what had once been theirs. Now she says there's a new enclosure going on. And what is the new enclosure? I'll tell you. Privatizing our public lands. That is the new enclosure. She said the last of our shared lands, our national parks, protected forests, and indigenous territories are being handed over to private interests, just as the common lands once were. And she backs it up with some sightings where you guys can go and look this up. She said millions of acres of public lands are being auctioned off for private profit, mirroring the same tactics used during the original enclosure. She said over 1,000 National Park Service employees have been laid off, including rangers, maintenance workers, and emergency responders. And this has left many parks understaffed, increasing safety risks and reducing access. And you can check this out, cited at AP News. The Washington Post said Trump has overseen the largest rollback of public land protections in U.S. history, including shrinking Bears Ears National Monument by 85%, clearing the way for corporate mining and drilling. The Bureau of Land Management says oil and gas drilling leases on federal lands have been sold for as little as $1.50 per acre, guys, transferring public resources into corporate hands at bargain prices. And she said this is just not about energy policy. It's about who controls the access to the land, the resources, and the economic security. Something to think about. When public lands are privatized, wealth is extracted from local economies and consolidated into corporate hands. The people who rely on these lands, indigenous communities, conservation workers, and rural economies are left with fewer options. So she said there's a final enclosure. What she is thinking is what comes after oil. She said oil is just the beginning. They're making it seem like that is just the beginning, but there is something else that is coming after oil. Once fossil fuel companies have extracted what they can, the next enclosure will come swiftly, meaning water privatization. Corporations like Nestle have already secured water rights in drought-stricken areas, selling essential resources back to the public at a premium. And she got this from The Guardian. Seed control. Agribusinesses giants like Monsanto have planted seeds, forcing farmers to rely on corporate-owned agriculture, cited by the National Geographic. Climate-driven displacement will be next. As extreme weather makes land unlivable, real estate developers and private companies are poised to profit from disaster recovery and relocation, cited by Yale Environment 360. So in a nutshell, this land is being forced off once again, guys. But she poses a question to us. She says, who will fight to keep it free? Who's going to reclaim the land? Who is going to keep public lands out of corporate hands? Who is going to support Indigenous-led resistance against land theft and extraction projects? Who is going to build local food and water networks that are not dependent on corporate control? Who is going to recognize that sovereignty is just not a personal thing, that it is collective? She said, because when they take the land, they take everything. And she said, history, generations in the future, will ask us who fought to keep it free. Will ask themselves, wondering why, if we don't help to keep it free. So she asks all of us to think about, with some reflection questions, those of you who care about the land, to ask yourselves, what Indigenous-led movements can I support that are actively fighting to protect public lands? Ask yourself, how can I begin reclaiming the land in my own life, whether through food, water, community, or land stewardship? She said, ask yourself, have you fallen for the illusion that I can separate my political choices from their impact on the land and resources we all depend on, guys? Just heartwarming. Something to think about. Something to think about. A lot of this stuff is already in place, right? What are we going to do? Our rights are being taken. Seems like more and more every day. And eventually, someone is going to get tired. I don't know if it's us, this generation, or who it will be. Someone will get tired. Think about this, guys. I am the messenger here, guys. I expect that you take me as the messenger, and I don't have to come in these comments and repeat that I was talking about an article that I want you guys to think about. But let me know how you feel in the comments. Let me know. Do you care about the land? Because a lot of people don't this day and age. People don't want to own land or have anything, but that doesn't mean that you don't care about it. So let me know. I need some kind of census for myself. I just want to know what you guys are thinking out there. Guys, we talk about creative living here in every area of our lives, and we have a segment about affordable housing while living in America. So if you are interested, please become a subscriber. Like the video, pass it along, share it, let people know this channel is over here, because we talk about the hot topics. We talk about things that are important to our lives. So I love you, and I will see you guys next time, real soon. Thank you for being here.